Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2011 Inamori Ethics Prize ceremony. I'm Barbara Snyder, president of Case Western Reserve University. Joining me on stage tonight are Bud Bazelak, our provost and executive vice president, Shannon French, director of the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence, Beatrice Mtetwa, the recipient of the 2011 Inamori Ethics Prize. More about her later. Every year, we select music to honor the cultural traditions from which our recipient comes. This year's selections came from the South, East, and West of Africa, courtesy of the Passport Project Dance and Music Collective. This local nonprofit's mission is to provide arts education experiences for youth and lifelong learners that encourages respect for diversity, individuality, and the global community. These are diverse artists who perform music and dance from around the world. On the stage tonight are performers from Guinea, Senegal, Ecuador, and artists of Indian, Native American, African, and European descent. Passport Project was founded in 1998 by Case Western Reserve alumna Chloe Hobson, who co-directed this performance with resident West African dance and percussion teacher Mohamed Tunkara. Performers for the processional are from the Shaker Heights High School Choir, which is directed by Dr. Robert Snyder. We are grateful to all of you for being with us tonight. Thank you so much for a beautiful presentation. We are here this evening because of the vision and generosity of Dr. Kazuo Inamori, a man described by the Financial Times as Japan's most celebrated business leader. He is the founder of Kyocera and later the telecommunications company KDDI. In 2010, Dr. Inamori accepted his government's request to become the chairman of Japan Airlines. In that role, he has energized the struggling corporation and stabilized its finances, bringing it out of bankruptcy. Speaking last month at the Global Convention of the Management School he founded in 1983, Dr. Inamori offered this timely advice, which I share with you. In order to face the challenge of formidable obstacles and to achieve difficult goals, you must be willing to proceed in a direct path toward your goal. Even when encountering trouble, you must believe in infinite possibility without a moment of hesitation. Those who can continue exerting endless efforts will be able to break through the wall of difficulty. Dr. Inamori applies this philosophy well beyond the realm of business. He is also a philanthropist, an educator, and a member of the Buddhist priesthood. In 1984, he launched the Inamori Foundation, endowing it with his own funds. The decision aligned with his belief, and I quote, that our highest calling as human beings is to work for the greater good of mankind and society. Just over 2 decades later, Case Western Reserve University was honored to receive a gift from the foundation to establish the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence. Its purpose, according to Dr. Inamori at the time, was to provide a common spiritual backbone for humankind and strive to indicate high moral standards and universal viewpoints. We are so pleased to welcome to Case Western Reserve University and to our community, Dr. Kazuo Inamori, who is sitting in the box above. Dr. Inamori. You can hear the gratitude of our community. Traveling from Japan with Dr. Inamori are representatives from the Inamori Foundation and Kyocera Corporation, whom I would like to acknowledge now. Will you please stand and be recognized as I introduce you, and remain standing till all are recognized? And members of the audience, please hold your applause until I have introduced all of our guests from Japan. First, Dr. Hiro Imura, chairman of the Inamori Foundation and former president of Kyoto University. Mr. Toyomi Inamori, Senior Managing Director of the Inamori Foundation and President, KI Enterprise Limited. Mr. Kazumasu Umemura, Executive Officer, Kyocera Corporation, General Manager, International Division, Corporate Office of the Chief Executive. Mr. Kiyohiko Kagoshi, Director and Manager, International Department, Inamori Foundation. And finally, Mr. Kenichi Hara, Deputy Manager of the International Department, Inamori Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Before we proceed with our program, I would like to ask our audience to pause for a moment. In March of this year, the nation of Japan suffered one of the worst natural disasters in world history. A 9.0 magnitude earthquake triggered 133-foot tsunami waves that wrought widespread destruction. More than 16,000 lives were lost and 300,000 people had to be evacuated. Amid the crisis, however, the people of Japan demonstrated extraordinary courage and gamen, a Japanese term that describes enduring great adversity with patience, calm, and dignity. Please join me now in a moment of silence to honor those who were lost and to recognize the strength and resilience of the Japanese people. Thank you very much. Now I would like to introduce a few other people here with us tonight for all they've done to contribute to the success of tonight's events. I want to start by thanking the entire Board of Trustees of Case Western Reserve University for their leadership and their support of our work in the area of ethics. In particular, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Bud Koch, Chair of the Board of Trustees of Case Western Reserve University, Mr. Franklin Salata, current member and former chair of the Board of Trustees, and his wife Jocelyn. Mr. Tim Callahan, vice chair of the Board of Trustees, and his wife Nancy. And Dr. Gregory Eastwood, former interim president of Case Western Reserve University and former director of the Inamori Center, and his wife, Lynn. I thank them all, not only for their support of this event, but also for representing Case Western Reserve University abroad as part of the university's delegation to the Kyoto Prize events. I also want to acknowledge our title sponsor, the Callahan Foundation, along with all of our generous sponsors and community partners. We could not do it without them. You will find a complete list of our benefactors in your program. Their investment in the Inamori Prize ceremony and in the Inamori Center are tributes to the shared values that we have here at Case Western Reserve and speak to the importance of ethical leadership in our community and in our world. Earlier today, we listened to a compelling panel discussion, and I would like to say a special word of thanks to the symposium panelists Andrew Meldrum, Rhonda Williams, Tom McDonald, and Peter Godwin, who have joined us this evening. Please stand up and let us thank you. And finally, a formal welcome to Beatrice Mtetwa, recipient of the 2011 Inamori Ethics Prize. Traveling with her to Cleveland is her daughter, Tanya, and I want you to help me welcome them to Case Western Reserve University and to our community. In the months since we announced that Beatrice Mtetwa had been selected as this year's recipient of the Inamori Ethics Prize, we received many letters of congratulations and commendation for her. Time prevents me from sharing all of the expressions of support, but I would like to read a bit from two. First, from Sherrod Brown, United States Senator from Ohio. Your work in Zimbabwe is selfless and noble. The Inamori Ethics Prize honors those who demonstrate exemplary ethical leadership and whose actions and influence have greatly improved the condition of humankind. You are both a wonderful humanitarian and an ethical leader. Second, from a proclamation by Cleveland Mayor Frank G. Jackson. In Zimbabwe, Ms. Mtetwa has distinguished herself as an advocate for basic liberties such as freedom of assembly and speech. Despite threats and physical attacks, Ms. Mtetwa has maintained and indeed redoubled her efforts. And in addition to her legal work, she has been a staunch advocate for social justice. Residing in an area rife with poverty and disease, she spearheaded efforts to curb the AIDS epidemic and also fought hard on behalf of the poor, working to improve the standard of living of all those in her community. So I want to say tonight thank you to Sherrod Brown and to Mayor Jackson and to all those who sent greetings to Beatrice Mtetwa. The Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence exists to foster global ethical leadership around the world. One of the ways the center promotes the mission is through the annual award of the Inamori Ethics Prize. In honoring individuals who have provided their own answers to the question of what it means to live an ethical life, our community learns more about the nature of those choices and the strength it takes to make them. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the director of the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence, Dr. Shannon French, to share remarks on behalf of the center.
Thank you, President Snyder. The mission of the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence, as envisioned by our generous benefactor, Dr. Kazuo Inamori, is to promote ethical leadership locally and globally. There is no better way to do that than to show the world what real ethical leadership looks like by presenting the annual Inamori Ethics Prize. To fulfill our mission, we at the Center work across academic and professional fields and in partnership with the broader community to present programs, events, teaching, and research activities that engage us in a dialogue on ethical issues. Our goal is to explore the challenges of ethical leadership from diverse perspectives through many voices. We believe that our shared humanity demands an unwavering commitment to certain core values and principles, such as the inherent dignity and worth of every human being. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "A man's character is his destiny." Apparently, character shapes a woman's destiny too, since we have honored 2 men and 2 women with the Inamori Ethics Prize to date. Individually and collectively, Dr. Francis Collins, the Honorable Mary Robinson, Stan Brock, and Beatrice Mtetwa are people of great courage, determination, passion, and intelligence, with an innate sense of right and wrong that experience has honed to razor sharpness. Our Inamori Ethics Prize recipients remind us that leading an ethical life is fraught with challenges. We are all of us works in progress. Through their examples, we can learn how to develop our characters to be persons of integrity, to show moral courage, and to act with honor and compassion. They inspire us to ask, what are our ethical obligations to others? How do we fulfill them? How do we lead a meaningful life? No one should have to choose between giving in to injustice and suffering physical injury or even death. Yet that is a choice that is made every day all over the world. What choice would any of us make? What is the character that defines us, that shapes our destiny? Perhaps we are stronger than we think. And if we do not know what is worth fighting for, perhaps we cannot know what makes life worth living. There are no more important questions to present to our minds and to hold in our hearts. At the Inamori Center, we endeavor to seek answers together through collaborative scholarship and experiential learning. Now please join me in welcoming Provost and Executive Vice President Bud Paislick to share more with you about this year's honoree.
Thank you, Shannon. Today we honor a shining example of strength of character and action, Zimbabwean human rights lawyer Beatrice Mtetwa. Beatrice Mtetwa did not wake up one morning and say, "Today I will become a champion for justice and human rights." Her path was more gradual and was revealed to her over time. When she saw her own father failing to support her younger siblings, what did she do? She fought to ensure that they were educated. After earning her law degree, when victims of oppression suffering under the Mugabe government brought their cases to her, what did she do? She fought for them. When some of her efforts were met with failure due to the corruption of the court system in Zimbabwe, what did she do? She refused to back down. Even when the police, the very men who should have been helping her uphold the law, beat her and choked her, she refused to quit. She would not give in to injustice or leave its victims without a voice. When asked why she continues the work she does, Beatrice has answered, "Even when we are beaten and thrown to the ground, we are not powerless. We can create a record which, even if it takes a generation, will shed light on evil so that the perpetrators and the villains will never be able to hide from the atrocities that they have committed. The people of Zimbabwe may not yet be free from oppression, But thanks to the leadership of Beatrice Mtetwa, they know what true freedom is, freedom of spirit, and what it looks like. The woman we honor here today with the 2011 Inamori Ethics Prize, Beatrice Mtetwa, has helped more than one person reclaim their human dignity. It is my pleasure to introduce the 2011 Inamori Ethics Prize recipient, Beatrice Mtetwa. Beatrice Mtetwa, throughout your career, you have consistently emphasized the importance of ethical leadership in the areas of human rights, freedom of expression, and justice. You have grappled with some of our world's most challenging questions and endured the criticisms of those whose perspectives differed from your own. You hold fast to your principles and yet strive to continue conversations that lead to greater understanding and compassion. Your work dramatically illustrates the challenges, opportunities, and concerns that are central to the mission of the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence. On the recommendation of the Inamori Ethics Prize Selection Committee, it is my pleasure to present to you the 2011 Inamori Prize Medal.
President Snyder, Case Western Reserve University Board of Trustees, Dr. Inamori, the Inamori Foundation, Provost Baslak, and Dr. French, all of you honored guests. I can't even begin to express that I am standing before you today. It is for me and my daughter who's here a great honor to be standing before you this evening, to talk to you as a distinguished audience and to accept this honor from the foundation. I am very grateful to your selection committee for choosing me. I am told that it was a very onerous process, and I'm still pinching myself that I am the one who finally made the final top list. I'm particularly honored to be receiving this prize from a corporation that has a background in communications. As you probably have read, I am extremely passionate about all forms of communication, as I believe that no society can enjoy true freedom and democracy without the free flow of information. Whether this is through telecommunications, the print media, radio, social media, virtually all forms of communication. My defense of media practitioners in Zimbabwe is premised on my belief that democracy and freedom of the media, freedom of expression, of telecommunications, go hand in glove and are two sides of the same coin. This is why the world over autocratic regimes target the media and all forms of communication to suppress any dissent. And this is why in Zimbabwe, the practice of journalism is still criminalized to a large extent because it is felt that they are purveyors of information that might result in persons becoming aware of their basic rights. And despite the global explosion in telecommunications, particularly the social media, Zimbabwe still remains in a time warp where it not only continues to harass and intimidate journalists, but where, as we speak right now, basic telecommunication tools such as television and radio by independent players remains banned. Zimbabwe continues to have only one state-controlled television and radio. It continues to churn out the kind of propaganda most of you would not believe. And despite the fact that with the inclusive government, there is now legislation to allow independent players, those who are supposed to license independent players in the media, particularly radio and television, are dragging their feet as we speak. Most of you would not believe probably that right now the telecommunication regulator is fiercely resisting the introduction of basic services such as those provided by BlackBerry to the operators because of the obvious fear that what might have happened in some African countries might also happen in Zimbabwe. This is despite the fact that Zimbabwe actually does have a freedom of expression clause in the telecommunications industry, and that the previous Supreme Court has declared that any monopoly in telecommunications is unconstitutional. I was part of a team many years ago in the mid-90s that fought a battle to actually have the monopoly of telecommunications by the state media declared unconstitutional. And we embarked on a case which we actually didn't believe in, but we said, if you don't try, you'll never really know what might happen. And we went to the Constitutional Court and got an order that indeed did declare that monopoly in providing telecommunications only by the state was unconstitutional. We thought it was a wonderful victory because we thought, oh, well, they will now open the airwaves, they'll open telecommunications, and they'll allow private players to be involved in those kinds of communications. We were wrong because the government said, well, you've got your order declaring it unconstitutional. The government has set up a private company that will start a telecommunications firm, and the first cellular phone network then became a government network in order to stop private players getting into the arena. And we went back to court and we said to the Constitutional Court, because the government is obviously not going to license anyone outside its realm, the court must now declare this particular company licensed to operate so that you know, the intention of the legislation would be put into effect. At the time, we did have an independent Supreme Court, and yes, they declared the company duly licensed, and it was able to start operations. In a lot of ways, the government's refusal to license this company was backfired in the sense that when they now wanted to license and put all kinds of conditions, we were able to say, oh, sorry, we actually were licensed by the court and there were no conditions attached to it. And it took quite a number of years before that licensing process was achieved when we were ready to, or were able to negotiate on our terms, the conditions that we thought would be useful for that purpose. I tell you this story to show that the law sometimes can be useful not just for ordinary human rights defenders and ordinary people in the street, but to show that even corporates sometimes need this kind of defense, because through the law, there can be expansion even of business. And I say this because when things really got bad in Zimbabwe, particularly in the early 2000s, a lot of the corporate clients that I had deserted me because of the fear of being associated with me. The Zimbabwean government was extremely difficult in dealing with, because if you are seen to be associating with persons who are deemed to be anti-government, your license could be withdrawn, etc. And I use this example to show that human rights and business can actually meet somehow, somewhere in between. And the fact that we have a corporation such as Kyocera sponsoring a prize like this and having the Inamori Foundation perhaps demonstrates beyond doubt that human rights and business go hand in glove, and that you cannot operate a successful business if, in fact, the rights of the persons you are serving are downtrodden. So it is my belief, my firm belief, that the enjoyment of basic democratic principles will continue to be regarded highly by business, and that instead of business looking at human rights as an issue that actually distracts their businesses, they can look at human rights and the defense of rights as an area that needs to be supported, an area that needs to be funded, particularly in areas even of research. It is absolutely crucial that business understands that it can do better if it supports research, and most of you are academics and understand the importance of research and how that can actually help improve lives, not just in Africa, but even in the developed world. So for me, the practice of human rights has not just been something that might affect my physical well-being, but in Zimbabwe it also affects one's livelihood. In Zimbabwe right now, I'm probably the oldest human rights defender, because most of my colleagues that I started this work with and I worked with in the 90s, in the beginning of the 2000s, either left Zimbabwe altogether or simply stopped doing human rights work, because at the end of the day it affects also your livelihood, and very few people are prepared to actually do work because they believe strongly in it. But awards like this for me serve to demonstrate, particularly to the younger generations, that when you are at college and when you go out into the world to work, it's not just about how much you'll make. It is what difference you can make, not just to your own life, but to those who live around you. So it is my hope that even when I go back to Zimbabwe, I will be able to inspire younger lawyers to say to them, you can be recognized for what you are doing. You need to do good, not necessarily to live well, but to make a difference to your community. I'm therefore particularly thankful to the foundation, to Shannon. I know you've been working flat out, and I'm very grateful to all of you for being here tonight. And to my daughter, I know that you have from time to time felt orphaned, but hey, I'm here. I'll fight for you as and when that becomes necessary. Again, I wish to thank very, very much Dr. Inamori and the foundation, Dr. Snyder, for being as graceful as you have been, and to thank all the trustees and for everybody who has made our visit as pleasant as it has been. I'm sure I've already put on 10 pounds or more because I have been eating so well, and I'm very, very grateful for everything you have done for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beatrice Mtetwa. Your work and your words inspire us. You truly are someone whose work today and in the future has changed and will change not only Zimbabwe, but the world. On behalf of President Snyder, who is seated with our distinguished guests, I would like to thank you all for attending today's prize ceremony and lecture. At this time, I would like to welcome back the performers organized by Passport Project who have prepared a closing number for our ceremony. At the end of this piece, the performers will exit the stage and continue this evening's celebration in the grand foyer. They invite you to join them there. This selection is called Tiriba, a traditional dance of celebration from Guinea in West Africa. The piece was choreographed by Mohamed Tunkara.
Maimbo, Maimbo mama, Maimbo, wo Beatrice Kabunda. Maimbo mama, Maimbo, wo Gagila Mera.